Welcome back to Pressers by FedNet, where news conferences from the United States Congress become podcast episodes for your listening on your time. House Democratic Caucus leaders Pete Aguilar and Ted Lieu were joined at their weekly news conference on June 30th by Debbie Dingell of Michigan, Maxwell Frost of Florida, and Lauren Underwood from Illinois. They discussed Obamacare enrollment, pending legislation, and more. The following material is protected by copyright.
Good morning. I'm honored to be here with the leaders of the DPCC as we reflect on a year since the passage of the Republican Big Ugly Bill. On July 4th, 2025, Trump marked the nation's birthday by signing a law that ripped away health care and food assistance for hardworking families in order to give billionaires and corporations more tax cuts. As a result, today, millions of Americans are getting sick, but they can't afford care. Children are going hungry, and families are going broke just trying to keep up with the costs every day. With their signature achievement, Republicans have made life harder for the working class, while the rich get even richer. And they're even proud of this. Now, for America 250, Republicans are celebrating the anniversary by attempting to rebrand this toxic law, the Working Families Tax Cut. Republicans are insulting the intelligence of the American people with this blatant lie. Americans are smart, and they know that their life has gotten harder and more expensive under Republican leadership. But rather than defending the bill, they just want to change the name. And I know families won't forget that Republican members Rob Bresnahan, Juan Ciscomani, Gabe Evans, Mike Lawler, Ryan McKenzie, Marianna Miller-Meeks, Zach Nunn, Derek Van Orden, and David Valadeo decided that Americans' groceries and doctor visits matter less than someone with a net worth of $50 billion. Imagine what we could accomplish together if Republicans made the wealthiest in our country pay their fair share. As we approach America's 250th anniversary, we should remember the values the nation was founded on, including a government that was founded for and by the people. Not a government that was founded for the wealthy and the well-connected and the well-off at the expense of the working class. Trump and Republicans may always put billionaires first, but House Democrats will always put you first, the American people. It's now my honor to introduce the Vice Chair of the Democratic Caucus, Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. Today is the 250th, this year is a celebration of the 250th anniversary of our amazing country. It is a glorious country, and one of the reasons that we have such an amazing country is our ability to evolve and to become a better place. So 250 years ago, I could not have been a citizen of the United States. I was not born in the U.S., but because of laws that Congress passed, my parents were able to come here, immigrate legally, and then I was able to become naturalized. 250 years ago, Lauren Underwood and Lori Trahan and Debbie Dingell could not have voted, but because of a constitutional amendment and the people of America, women's suffrage happened. And then today, we learned from the Supreme Court that one thing did and still holds true, that if you are born in the United States, you are a citizen of the U.S., and I'm relieved and very happy that the Supreme Court ruled in favor of birthright citizenship today. And that is what makes America great. We continue to be the best in the world because of the diversity of our country. Inflation is up, gas prices are up, grocery prices are up, and what are Trump and Republicans focused on? A giant arch to honor Donald Trump. Putting Donald Trump's face on U.S. passports. Putting Donald Trump's face on a $250 bill. Putting Donald Trump's name on airports. Putting Donald Trump's name on federal buildings. This is not what the American people want, nor what the president promised. So we ask Trump and Republicans to focus on reducing costs. That's the number one issue facing America, and stop putting Trump all over Washington, D.C. And now it's my honor to introduce Debbie Dingell, their terrific chair of the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee, and she's going to tell you about the great work we're doing in terms of messaging the American people about what Democrats would do if we were to change the makeup of Congress.
Well, good morning, everybody. I want to make it, today is a birthday. I'm very proud of our 250th birthday of this country. And everybody should go back and read the Declaration of Independence. Remind ourselves what they fought for and what we're still fighting for today. So I'm proud of our birthday. And I'm not letting the American people own this birthday. But today, the Republicans are, I would never use the word celebrate, but it is the anniversary of the day that President Trump signed, and I will not call it what he signed. I don't think the American people think it was one big blank bill. I have called it one big shitty bill. I have called it one big bad bill. I've used a lot of other expletive deletives, and everybody asked me to behave today. So I'll try to behave. I'm going to tell you the truth, though, because 1 year later, working families, working families haven't felt any kind of benefit. And if you got out of the bubble of the White House or the mall, you would know what's really happening to working families. They're living with the consequences. Just this weekend, I heard from people everywhere about the cost of gas, about the cost of housing. I went in the grocery store, and the stories, a mother came up to me, and she's a single mother, and her child's got asthma, and she can't afford the inhaler because she couldn't afford the Affordable Care bill this last year. And Medicaid's being cut, which is also the only source for many families and children, and it's the largest payer of long-term care in this country. People are worried. Parents are worried about whether they can afford health care for their family. Seniors are worried about whether they can get their medicine. And I was with a woman last week whose husband has Alzheimer's, is close to dying. And she looked at me and said, who's going to take care of me? Where is the money going to come from? You know, and people are also, those are the stories that just get me. And people are asking whether the hospitals that they've relied on will still be there when they need it. Michigan has closed 10 lines since this bill passed. Hospitals are disappearing in rural America. So I want to say their fears are real because of this bill. President Trump and Republicans chose to finance massive tax breaks for the wealthiest Americans by taking health care and food assistance away from millions of people. And I just want to remind people, we couldn't come back and deal with the Affordable Care. How long were we out? But we had to come back during 4th of July week to make sure those billionaires got their tax cuts that didn't even expire to the end of the year. This bill included the largest cuts to health care and food assistance in our nation's history, all while delivering more than $1 trillion in tax cuts to the top 1%. We got new figures yesterday. Over 8 million Americans have already lost their health coverage. You know what they've lost in food assistance. And as I keep saying, rural hospitals, nursing homes, community health providers are facing impossible financial pressures. And while families are paying more for their health care, their groceries, and energy, wasn't it nice that the president said the housing bill that was actually passed by a bipartisan group, he called it a yawn yesterday. My people at home don't call it a yawn. They're scared. Young people cannot find housing they can afford. The grief on their side is insatiable. So the message here is, if the big ugly bill said, if you're wealthy and well-connected, you'll be taken care of, that's not a yawn. If you're a working family trying to meet ends meet, who cares? You're on your own. So we're going to keep fighting to protect Medicaid. When we get back to fight, protect Medicaid, strengthen access, get people uninsured, insured again, lower prescription drug costs, defend rural hospitals, and help get young children and families struggling who are working that just can't afford their food. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague and one of the co-chairs of DPPC, Maxwell Frost, who is in touch with many.
Thank you. It's an honor to be in touch with the many, and it's an honor to be here. Look, I just got to say, your bill is bad and unpopular when on the year anniversary, when you're supposed to be celebrating it, you're changing the name of it. And I think the other thing that's so important is not only you changing the name of it, but the original name you gave it literally has the word beautiful in it. You put the word beautiful in it. And a year out, it's so unpopular that you have to change the name. They're calling it the Working Families Tax Cut. We looked into the record. I wanted to make sure. Did I ever vote on the Working Families Tax Cut Act? Because it sounds good, but we never voted on such a thing. We voted on the Big Beautiful Bill, the so-called Big Beautiful Bill. I like to say the name because they don't want us to say it. It's a bill that was beautiful for billionaires and mega corporations because it cut our health care. It took away resources from working people, from young people, from seniors, and it gave it to the richest people in this country. And it's not surprising because this is what Donald Trump has done his entire life. And so, of course, his first big legislative accomplishment coming into office again was to do the same thing. Figure out how can I take resources from working people, from working families, and give it to people like me, give it to billionaires, give it to mega corporation. It's the same old story. The rich getting richer, the poor getting poorer, and everyone else in between doesn't have anything. The problem in this country is simple. Everything is too expensive and nobody has any money. People want us to focus on the issues right in front of them. And I think a year out from this bill being passed, people are losing health care. Housing is too expensive. And most of the benefits from it go to the people who already have loads and loads of money. What people want is simple. And I encourage my Republican colleagues to go out and knock doors in their neighborhood. Because when I knock doors, I hear about very simple things. People want a home that they can afford, lower rents. They want to make sure that they can have a place to call home. Donald Trump is refusing to sign one of the only things this Congress has actually done, which is move forward a bipartisan piece of legislation on housing. And he doesn't want to make your housing cheaper because he wants to make it harder for you to vote. And so he's refusing to sign the bill. People want health care that they can rely on, health care that they can actually afford without these crazy costs. People want a good job to support their family, where one job is enough and where you have a wage that can actually pay for your bills. People want child care when and where they need it, which is something that we're going to work on delivering. And people also want time to spend with their family. They want paid and family sick leave. These are the things that people want. This is what I hear when I'm out knocking doors in my community. People don't want a bill like the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which is one of the most unpopular pieces of legislation, even though it has the word beautiful in it, in the history of this country, that gives most of the resources to the richest people. So the choice isn't clear. It couldn't be even clearer. We can keep cutting taxes for billionaires and making working families pay the price, or we can build an economy that actually rewards hard work and that actually rewards people, where healthcare is protected as a human right, is an American right, where housing is an American right, and where everybody has a fair shot of getting ahead. That is not the country that we live in now. People, we're in the 250th anniversary of this nation, and the thing that I keep thinking about isn't necessarily how far we've come. Of course, I think about that. That's important. But I think about the next 250. 250 years from now, where will we want the folks celebrating then the 500th anniversary of this country? Where do we want to be? And I'll tell you, for me, I want our country to be able to say we've guaranteed health care to every single person. We don't have people living on the streets in their cars and hotel rooms. People have a home. I don't think that's such a radical thing to say, and this is what Democrats stand for. And next up, I'll bring up Lauren Underwood.
Thank you. Good morning. This Saturday marks one full year since House Republicans passed their big, ugly bill. And I emphasize the word ugly because 1 year later, it's been just that, especially for Americans' health care. As a nurse and someone who's dedicated my life and career to expanding and protecting families' access to quality care, it has been horrifying to watch all of this unfold. The big ugly bill is the largest health care cut in American history. 1 year ago, they ripped $1 trillion of federal funding out of our healthcare system to line the pockets of all those guys that were in the front row of Donald Trump's inauguration. When you combine those cuts with the impact of Republicans' refusal to extend the extremely popular Affordable Care Act tax credits at the end of last year, it really is no wonder why we have this disaster that we all can see today. The suffering that this legislation has already brought about is almost unbelievable. And pregnant women, new moms, kids, rural communities, and people with disabilities are being hit the hardest. Hundreds of clinics and hospitals across 39 states have closed, and they are never coming back. Almost 10,000 healthcare workers have lost their jobs. The cost of healthcare has skyrocketed. Deductibles are on average $1,000 higher than they were this time last year. Millions of people are facing double and even triple-digit increases to their premiums, and the data is showing those increases will continue into next year. Insurers are leaving the marketplace entirely, and we just learned yesterday that 5 million people have dropped out of the Affordable Care Act marketplace in the last year. That's a 13% drop after years of record-breaking enrollment. These are not talking points. This is concrete and specific data that we have 1 year after Republicans passed this bill. It's a crisis that all of us standing before you warned the American people about. And as I said from this podium then, every single one of these data points is more than just a number. Each one is a family that is now one illness away from a bankruptcy. It's a kid with asthma who can't see their pediatrician, a dad going through cancer treatments who is picking up extra shifts instead of focusing on his care. These are the stories that are playing out across communities in our country because 1 year ago, Donald Trump and the Republicans in charge made the decision to prioritize making billionaires richer over health care for working families. And guess what? They know it too. A couple weeks ago, the Department of Health and Human Services, led by RFK Jr., the biggest threat to public health in this country, issued a rule suggesting that insurers offer people a loan to cover these surging costs. It's outrageous and completely unacceptable, and it does not have to be this way. It's been 1 year of the big ugly bill, but House Democrats have not given up on this fight. Because whether you live in urban America or rural America, in a Midwestern community like mine, or one of our great coastal cities, every single American family should have good, affordable health care. Our health care is a patriotic issue, and we are going to keep fighting. So thanks again for being here, and I'm delighted to bring up my colleague, Lori Trahan.
Well, thank you, Lauren, and thank you to Chairman Aguilar and Vice Chair Lieu for hosting us this morning. This weekend, America turns 250 years old, and whether families are filling up their tanks to hit the road or firing up the grill at home, they're bracing for what it's going to cost them. Because a year and a half into Donald Trump's presidency, life has only gotten harder for the vast majority of Americans. Gas prices are up, grocery prices are up, prescription drug prices have skyrocketed, and the cost of health care keeps climbing. So as folks prepare for their 4th of July weekend, what are Republicans in Congress doing to help the people that we represent? Are they putting a bill on the floor to make it easier to travel and see their family? No. What about legislation to make it a little bit more affordable to host a barbecue? Not a chance. How about something to give parents the peace of mind that they can afford a doctor's visit when their kids get sick or injured? We all know the answer to that question. And instead of calling a single vote to bring prices down, Republicans instead have put a toothless resolution on the floor this week celebrating the 1-year anniversary of their one big ugly bill. They're taking a victory lap on the same bill that ripped health care away from millions of Americans and took food out of the mouths of hungry kids, all to pay for a tax cut that overwhelmingly benefited the wealthiest 1% in our country. So when you fill up your tank or stop by the grocery store this weekend and you're wondering how the heck you're going to afford that bill, Just know that Republicans in Washington are throwing themselves a party, and hardworking Americans not invited. Thank you.
Questions? Max.
Thanks. At Caucus today, there was discussion of the Massey Amendment. I know we've asked you about this previously, and you said you'd wait until after Caucus to give your position. So just curious what your stance on this is.
It was great. It was a continuation of an opportunity to hear directly from members on their positions. We started this as you all reported on Sunday. That has continued. And it's always, as members of leadership and everyone up here is a member of leadership, it's always helpful to hear where members are at. We'll see if Republicans can pass the rule. We're a couple hours away from that. I know I said I'd talk a little more today, and I will. But we heard a variety of thoughts, and I think the most important single piece that we heard from Caucus was each one of our colleagues saying, this may be my position, but I respect other people's position, and we respect where each other are on this issue. Whether you were supportive or in opposition of the Massey Amendment, that doesn't mean that you feel everything is going well in that region, and that doesn't mean that Netanyahu has a blank check. It also doesn't mean that our aid and support will go on forever. And so we continue to work through that, and we'll have more to say. I think the members of the leadership team will have more to say if Republicans can get the rule off the floor. Michael, then Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know you all said that this was a very respectful conversation and everyone kind of respected everyone's position, but this is a very, it's really, it fires up the base. It fires up, any conversation around Israel, any conversation around, funding the Netanyahu government tends to rile up different parts of the base. Are you confident that wherever you all land, that Democrats will be able to communicate through all the mediums that the DPCC tries to reach people? Are you confident that you all will be able to communicate with voters to kind of articulate in a way that allows them to respectfully talk to each other and talk to you all about this issue? Because every primary that we're asking you about every week, every tough vote, this is tough for the caucus and it's tough for constituents. How are you all thinking about this going forward?
It's tough and emotional for the American people, and they have thoughts and concerns about this, and we respect that. We absolutely do, and so it's our job and our responsibility to communicate that, and so we will. Now, what we have talked about too is we have to also communicate what the Trump administration has done, how they're ripping away health care from people. That is incredibly important. I understand that people have strong positions on this issue. Our focus too as leaders is to remind them, what the big picture is. And the big picture is Republicans continue to attack health care and nutrition programs that are used in our communities. They're celebrating it. They're giving high fives about it. This is the 1-year anniversary of that. They continue to do that. So while these amendment votes are important, and they give you a glimpse into, how we would govern, it's also important to remember it's very unlikely this bill, the SFOPS bill as we call it, is going to become law with or without the Massey Amendment. It's going to go through a lot of changes. What is law is Republicans and Trump and Republicans taking away health care from folks. That's real. It's felt by folks. And so we'll do everything we can to remind people. Riley, and then Chad.
You all today mentioned some proposals you'd like to pursue in a majority. Do you have a sense of timeline of when House Democrats might officially roll out their legislative agenda?
We are making sure that every member of the caucus has had input, been talked to. The leader has established work groups. We've met with every ranking member. I've one left today. We've met with every caucus. And I think there'll be some consensus that we'll all talk about among ourselves before we leave for summer. You'll see people doing events in August, and then the work will continue into the fall about what, one, we got to win the House, and everybody's focused on that, and that's the number one. And then I think you'll see it start to consensus and gel, some in the fall, and after the election, you'll see more. So it's really in phases. I think we take nothing for granted. We have to talk to the American people about what they're really hurting from right now. The issues we're talking about today, healthcare, prescription drugs, food, the cost of living, housing, caregiving, childcare, and long-term care are what people are really, and I think you'll continue to see us talk about those issues, the ones that are impacting working men and women across the country.
Mr. Lieu, good morning. Thank you. Past week or so, we've heard a lot of consternation from moderate Democrats about democratic socialists and progressives and some of their views winning in New York. In the fall, from the left wing of your caucus, I heard consternation about people like Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger winning. They were too moderate for the Democratic Party. So which is it going into the fall?
This is a Big Tent Democratic Party. Going into the fall, there is room for you. No matter where you are, maybe not you, Chad, but
aren't there clashes? But aren't there clashes because you have two different wings that see this so diametrically opposed?
No, every person in that tent from these corners that you're talking about, every single one of them wants to hold the Trump administration accountable. Every single one of them wants to deliver help and support and health care and restore the nutrition cuts that this Republican majority has taken away from folks. Every single one of them is going to fight to protect reproductive care and ensure that we're doing everything we can to deliver housing support and elder care and child care, lower the cost of utilities. Every single one of them will embrace that agenda. So there may be different places within the broad tent that candidates and members come from, but all of us are aligned on that agenda, and that comes down to the values that we share.
I mean, just real quick, this is what a coalition looks like. And people might not be used to it because the Republican Party is the party of Trump. There's no room for disagreeing with him. There's no room for conversations about where we go. But we're not the party of one person. We're a coalition. And there's going to be those discussions about where we move forward. But at the end of the day, like the chair said, we believe in healthcare. We believe in housing. And there's room for a lot of people in our coalition. We're not the party of one person like the Republican Party. And so that's what I would say. And that's the difference. And it might look a little different than the governing party right now. But this is what it means to be in a broad coalition. And it's going to look different in different parts of the country. And that's the beautiful thing about the Democratic coalition.
As progressive, do you think some of those folks can work with the moderates in your party?
We're going to work with everybody. I mean, look how united our caucus has been the last year and a half of this administration, ripping away health care from people, not signing a housing bill, doing everything they can to take the resources we have and give it to the richest people. We've been united, and we're going to have discussions, and we're going to figure out how we're going to move forward. But again, sometimes that friction, although it might make for good, press, it's part of being in a coalition. It's part of being in a group. And for us, it's not about one person and bowing to Donald Trump or anything. It's about figuring out how we move forward. And that's the reason I'm proud to be a Democrat as a progressive. That's why I'm proud to be a Democrat, is because we get to have that discussion moving forward. It doesn't exist on the other side right now, which is a shame. But it exists on our side, and that's the difference.
Coalitions, not cults. Nick.
As we sit here, Congressman Tom Kean is giving a speech on the House floor explaining his absence. How would a future Democratic caucus majority handle a prolonged absence?
We don't know what he said, and I want to understand what he's saying. But it's clear members come to this job, and they are responsible and they are beholden to their constituents. The fact that somebody hasn't shared with their constituents why they skip work for 4 months is between him and his constituents. We've got some thoughts on it. It's not how I would do things, but that's between him and his constituents, and they may have an opportunity to opine on that in the near future, and we'll see. But people do come to these jobs with challenges, and I think I've found that people who are honest about those challenges with their colleagues and with their constituents generally get a little bit of grace and space to get well. But hiding it and cloak and dagger and where in the world is Tom Kean is just a little weird for, I think, all of us to understand. But we would encourage folks, if we're fortunate enough to be in the majority and people have life issues that come up, we would encourage them to be honest with their constituents and their colleagues. Yes.
Chair, just wanted to get your reaction on the SCOTUS opinions today, the decisions, one of which was the birthright citizenship, like we mentioned. Your Republican colleagues had said that they were disappointed with the decisions, saying that people have abused the system in the way it is. Your reaction to that, sir?
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and I just come back to what Vice Chair Lieu said, and it's the blessing of this country to have somebody illegally immigrate and then have a family behind them, and to have the vice chair up here telling the story about his own family is amazing. But look, Republicans are not serious about this issue. It's always been about politics, and we'll see how the president responds to this. But I'm sure there'll be a couple hundred words that he'll put out. But this was the right decision. The crazy part is that it wasn't a unanimous decision. Mm-hmm. I think that's the most shocking for us. But look, the Supreme Court playing politics and being cheerleaders isn't unique these days. Last one.
Yeah, Congressman. Also on SCOTUS decisions, your reaction to the Supreme Court ruling that transgender youth cannot participate in scholastic sports?
Look, this is unfortunate. This is a group that prides themselves on states' rights, and I think being a kid is hard enough these days, and for these justices and for politicians to say that they know better is incredibly tough. We tend to believe in leaving this up to local sports organizations and groups who have figured this out. The International Olympic Committee has figured this out. Where I live and where Ted lives, the California Interscholastic Federation has figured out rules of the road. I don't know why those decisions can't be made locally, and why we can't allow coaches and teachers and parents and kids to arrive at a conclusion that they can live with. But this court believes a little differently.
I would just add, we need to pass the Equality Act. Okay? And in a Democratic majority, we will be passing the Equality Act. We need to pass the Equality Act, and in a Democratic majority, we will be passing the Equality Act. I also just want to say on the birthright citizenship case, the 14th Amendment was written to deal with citizenship for the formerly enslaved. And so while this case spoke about a different group of people, I just want to celebrate and affirm that that amendment still stands, and we celebrate that today.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or use of this episode without express written permission from FedNet is prohibited.